Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon, and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a coffee, Patreon, crypto, and thanks button in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcomed back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and X. Now we are joined by Neil and a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
Hey,
Good morning.
Good morning.
Such enthusiasm for a Tuesday. Don't normally mention the day, but when it's such high enthusiasm levels, we did a full warm-up in the pre-show. Let's try that again. Welcome, one and all.
Yo, good morning.
Hey.
I like it. Any scientific evidence of gravity?
Gravity, what's that?
109-year out-of-date mass attracting mass, or 109 years till now, pretty much if you ignore quantum mechanics, pseudo-Riemannian space-time bending, fourth dimensional gravity from Einstein.
So no cause and effect relationship then, so not science then.
I mean, you can scientifically validate specific gravity, but that's just relative density disequilibrium explanations, which can be scientifically validated. But mass attracting mass was superseded by fourth dimensional pseudo space-time. Those are the current rhetorics for keeping gas around a sphere Earth in a sky vacuum in violation of natural law, in spite of the fact that neither of those would actually, well, in the first instance, mass doesn't attract mass, so it's immediately violated by how gas behaves, because it's not attracting itself in any way, shape, or form. It has elastic collisions. So that overrides the already superseded 109-year out-of-date Newtonian in name only gravity. But then you've got a convoluted gaggle screw nonsense of bent pseudo-Riemannian force space-time with geodesics to give rise to a gerrymandering of the forces that we don't experience by scale. So saying that we have 1g acting on us when we're just sat doing nothing, and there's 0g acting on us when you're in a perpetual orbital motion derived from flat plane measurements. Hope that answers your question. Hello, John.
Oh.
Hello. Any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
Not at all. Those are pseudosciences. No, they don't have any scientific proof of anything. Just observations.
Is it Gil Pong? Am I saying your name correctly? Was giving us a talk in the... Go ahead.
Gilly Pong, yeah.
Gilly Pong.
That's pretty much close.
If you're a member, check out the pre-show where Gilly Pong was going through his research, if you want to call it that, into Francis Bacon. And specifically, the aspect that we touch on is the scientific method. So check that out. Get a book recommendation out of him as well. So yeah, that'll get published as soon as the live show finishes. Now, should really ask this question. Any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety? Don't all go at once.
I'm going to need a flat plane and a radius value in order to come to that conclusion.
Indeed we will. Maybe we'll cover that in a minute with Tyson. So, you know the drill. If you're a frequent flyer, that is to say, let Neil deGrasse Tyson, or whoever the videographer is in this instance, know. At Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me. There is a link to the video they're about to cover going by in the live stream. So, hopefully, if we were to ever get a response from some of these people, they would put a link to our video, this video. to help us in the YouTube algorithm where we receive none.
All the planets orbit in the same direction around the sun. Well, this question has been with us for centuries. And it wasn't until the mid-1700s where
you'd already established the movements with respect to their angular relationships on a flat plane at this point.
An idea was put forth by Laplace, who suggested that maybe they formed from a disk of gas that was swirling around the sun.
So perhaps it was a second law of thermodynamics violation, gas swirling around, not dispersing into areas of volume in line with entropic law. Perhaps that's what it was.
So whatever you make out of that disk...
What disk? This disk that he's fantasized into reality? Because it doesn't exist. It also violates a law of nature. But now we've got a disk in space from gas. Right, Tyson? Because one man postulated it. This is the world we live in, isn't it? One man says, maybe it's this. Next thing you know, it's that. And we're talking about it.
As you absorb up the remaining gas, whatever...
Sorry, to absorb up gas. What? What's absorbing up gas now? Gas disperses in all directions, all vectors, in line with entropic law to fill whatever volume it's got. Meanwhile, let's just make up a fantasy story about what gases do out in outer space.
Whatever you make is going to have the motion that the original...
Is it? Why? The what? The motion of orbits? The orbital motion's described from measurements taken from a flat plane. I've already covered this. Making it absurd when you reify it into motions around a sphere Earth, or around the sun in this instance.
Original gas had. And that way you get all the planets orbiting in the same direction in approximately the same plane. We see the formation of...
Is that it? No, there's more.
Planets around other stars.
Just a heavy edit, fair enough. It is a shorts video.
And they're making disks. So we have...
All right.
They need.
There's a correlation transformed into causation. Go ahead.
But he invoked the plane there. He's not talking about the Earth. Well, he is talking about the planet as a disk that forms into a planet. But they need a plane to describe the angles for the orbits. That's why they used an ecliptic plane.
Correct. The derivation of an orbit has its genesis in flat Earth measurements. That's correct.
Independent evidence of what likely happened at the beginning of our own solar system.
No, you don't have a time machine. You don't have a DeLorean. So offering me up so-called evidence of what happened at the beginning of time will merely be you reifying bent geodesics in space-time to claim that when you look through a telescope, you're looking back in history. Yeah, that's all this is.
So, yeah, good question.
So, no.
That was.
Great question. Shame it needed flat Earth to answer it. What's that? We're in an orbital motion after deriving flat Earth measurements, and therefore we've got disks of gas violating natural laws. It's utterly absurd. This whole rhetoric, this whole heliocentric nonsense rhetoric, it's just absurd. That was it. That was the whole shorts video from Tyson. Also got another one.
The three broadband winter set
is from Sabine Hosselenfelder. Just get this sized up before I take her off mute and rewind her. Oh, why does this look so terrible? Here we go. Beautiful.
Happened before the Big Bang? I got this question on Twitter and thought, well, the answer is that we don't know. Now, I'm quite fond of short videos, but that's a little too short even for my taste. Then I saw that Brian Cox has supposedly debunked the Big Bang with the creation story, and I thought...
So there's nothing to debunk. You don't debunk stories with stories. I'm not going to say that Star Wars debunks Narnia. Because, I mean, I could. Star Wars comes along and is a different story to the history of Narnia. Completely different lore. Therefore, Narnia debunked with Star Wars. No. Lemaitre's ideas of what happened at the Big Bang are merely, like with the other video we just covered with Tyson, just his ideas. What he says does not go and does not require any sort of debunking. It hasn't been proven in the first instance. to assert that we need to debunk it. But this just puts it into a false dichotomy away from the begging the question fallacy story that is the origination of the Big Bang by Lemaitre. So if you can put it in false dichotomy where one man's saying he's debunked a story, it's like, well, one of them's got to be true. No, right? Complete false dichotomy. Whatever Cox says versus whatever Lemaitre says, the truth will out. Like what? He-Man versus Thundercats. Whoever proves their story most true. What the hell? What kind of world do we live in? This is bonkers.
Thought he did what? Then I watched the clip that's narrated by Brian Cox, and I think I know what happened there. Let me explain.
He came up with a just so story, just like Lemaitre about the Big Bang did, and then he offered it up in false dichotomy, juxtaposing it with the original Big Bang story versus his version of his story. And you're going to now pick those two stories apart? Yeah, why are we doing this? Who picked this video? Is it you, Righteous?
No.
You posted it.
My fault. Sorry.
I like to moan. It doesn't mean I'm actually moaning at you. You'll get the vibe eventually. Me saying, I hate this, is because actually I love it and it's giving me a good reaction to put out to the audience. But if I don't disclaim that, it does, strictly speaking, ruin the magic for the audience. But so you know, I'm not telling you off. When I say, I hate this, it doesn't necessarily mean it's so. It means I love to hate it rather than I hate you for posting it. Does that make sense?
Makes sense, man.
Perfect. This is an outrage. Let's juxtapose He-Man with Thundercats and see which one wins.
Observations tell us that the universe expands.
Really? Why?
If we use those observations and take the equations that Einstein gave us...
Sorry, if we take observations and then utilise maths as an explanation for it. I see. No, you can qualify and describe things with mathematics, but they're not going to give you any explanations. Let's just get that clear right off the bat.
We can calculate what happened in the distant...
No, you can't. Yeah, you're not going back in time. We've already covered this already as well. Nobody's going back in time to tell us the beginnings of our existence. In order to do so, you would have to rewind the arrow of time, which is precisely what they're inferring they're doing, by whatever means they infer that they can do it. Nevertheless, you cannot rewind entropy. The arrow of time moves in one direction, and to assert that you can rewind the arrow of time to the beginnings of time will only lead you to one question. Did nature create us, or was there an external entity? That is known as the ontological primitives. That is where this question leads you. Now, they don't want you to know that. So what they're going to do is offer you up He-Man versus Thundercats and ask you which one seems more real. That's what they're actually going to do.
Past. Since the universe expands in the past...
So we've decided it does expand. Baseless assertion with absolutely no evidence to back it, but universe expands. Does it? So this light show in the sky is expanding. Is it expanding into what? How is it expanding? Oh, we can give you the maths for how we describe what we see through our telescopes. Therefore, it's expanding. Look at my description of it expanding. In physical terms, it's getting bigger.
Past, matter must have been more concentrated. Indeed, if we trace the equations back, then the density of matter just increases and increases until it's infinitely large.
See? Yeah, this is pure inference, right? You can see what happens when entropy goes forward. Therefore, by inference, you can describe what would happen if you rewound time. Yeah, again, I'm so ahead of this.
This infinite density happens at a finite time of about 13.8 billion years.
Sorry, when you say a finite amount of time, is this the fourth dimensional space-time that you'll be utilising later to describe gravity? Or is it just the time that we experience our known existence in, as a qualification that we all know and love? Which one is it? We talking bent geodesics here? Sounds like we've got an equivocation problem.
And it's what we usually refer to as the Big Bang.
Is it? I don't. Lemaitre did. Now you have decided that's true. So therefore, we all refer to it as Big Bang. No, I was about to say Christian. Your heliocentric religion infers that this is the origin story because a man came up with a story about it.
Mathematically, this Big Bang is a singularity in several measurable quantities.
Mathematically, it's a singularity. It's a good job we don't experience in conceptual mathematics, isn't it? Because that's not physics. So when you start moving from the physical... let's just be a little bit more careful about what I say. The reified physical based on Lemaitre stories, into the mathematical, we're going from the reified non-physical into the conceptual non-physical to tell you how the world is. How dare you? You're poison, Sabine, you're poison.
Like the energy density of matter, but also the curvature of space-time.
Oh, sorry, what? This is now going to have the equivocation I called about 25 seconds ago. Now we've got bent geodesic, called it.
The first relevant thing to note is that that doesn't mean there wasn't anything before the Big Bang.
Does it not? How the hell would you know? So now she knows, based on inference through mathematical derivations, rewinding the arrow of time. Now you know whether or not there is anything before the beginning of the time that you didn't see when you rewound the arrow of time through inference and mathematics. This is an outrage. I shouldn't be able to unpack it.
It's just that if there was something before the Big Bang, it isn't in any way connected to what happened after.
How the hell do you know? I'm not saying that's wrong or right. You just don't know.
So we'd never know of it.
So why are you making any inference if you're going to disclaim straight after that garbage that you just wouldn't know? Yeah, like I did while you were saying it. But you're still saying it, aren't you, love? Like it's got some merit? It hasn't. Like you just disclaimed. You just wouldn't know, would you? Yeah, like I said as you were babbling out your nonsense.
To see what I mean, take a super simple example of a singularity that...
What? The singularity that only exists in the mathematical conception that you just invented? Should I take... How do I do that? How am I going to take this concept within the mathematics into the physical? Can you tell me how I do that first so I can physically do this? So me as a researcher can manipulate something. Oh, what's this? Is this a graph? I don't think I'm going to be able to capably physically manipulate a singularity. I think you're just making this garbage up by reification and mathematical conception. In fact, that's exactly what you're doing.
in the function 1 over x squared when x goes to 0. It's not like there's no curve for x smaller than 0. It's just that there's no connection between the two parts.
And this isn't physics.
The same could be the case for the Big Bang thing.
It could, but I've just said it isn't physics. So now you're going to connect it to what you described by Lemaitre's story as a physical story of our physical beginnings when nature poofed itself into existence, a violation of the first law of thermodynamics. No, I'm not going to accept it. It violates natural law.
Singularity. There was something before it, but it's not in any way connected to us, so we'd never...
Because by pure fiat you say so. You couldn't know, but now you know. And you're going to tell us that that's what you know, and therefore that's how it is. What an outrage. Literally 30 seconds ago on this video, you disclaimed that you just couldn't know.
No. That said, most physicists don't think that the singularity is even there to begin with.
Again, so why are we even postulating it? Not that they know either, they're making it up too. So I wouldn't take their, I don't think it's that way either, like I wouldn't take Brian Cox's juxtaposition in false dichotomy like it has any merit either. None of this has any merit. We're in complete la-la land. Does anybody think that this is what they live in? Yeah? Because this is not a bent geodesic in 4D space-time, but that's what they're alluding to. Yeah? That your visualization of a bent geodesic in 4D space-time on a 2D picture of a 3D rendering with no fourth dimension in it whatsoever? It's just a pretty picture. This is what's used to sell us on the total nonsense garbage that you reified through mathematical conventions. I mean, this is just outrageous. I hate it. Good video. Who picked this?
That's because in all other cases where we have a singularity in a physical...
Do we? We have a singularity in physical measurable quantities now? What the hell? No, we do not.
A measurable quantity... It just means that the theory breaks down and we need to use a better one.
I see. So the fact that we don't have anything to back for this in physics means we just need a better quote-unquote theory. You're hijacking the terms of science though, aren't you, love? Because theories are based on scientific evidence and this doesn't have any, does it? None. But we need a better theory. What, you mean a better just-so story? Is no one else outraged by this? More so than Tyson. This is absolutely infuriating. No, nobody gives a crap. Fair enough.
A good example is hydrodynamics that describes how liquids behave. Surfaces of drops can have points with infinite curvature, like...
Roll on the false equivalence. So, a three-dimensional water drop has curvature, therefore bent geodesics in space-time and singularities. No, it's just a false equivalence.
When a drop of water pinches off a tap, that pinch-off point
Has that got a bent geodesic in space-time? Yeah, that little drop. Is it a singularity in the bent geodesic in the fourth dimensional realm? Where's the fourth dimension? Your pretty picture had one. It didn't. It was hijacking one of the already in existence third dimensions in this instance. There isn't any fourth dimension even being eluded by hijacking a third dimension. So where's the fourth dimension? There isn't one. A minute ago we had bent geodesics and now you're pointing at the end of a tap and telling me it's so.
point is the singularity.
Is it? So this is your proof for the singularity, is it? Anybody else buying this? Does anybody else watch a tap dripping and go, yeah, Einsteinian fourth dimensional bent geodesic in space-time causing a singularity? No.
But of course, if you look at the drop on the scale of a single atom, there's nothing singular about it. It's
So it doesn't even stack up in false equivalence, really?
just that if we approximate all those atoms with a smooth fluid, that those singularities appear.
If we approximate it.
They're a consequence of this approximation. That
Consequences of approximations. If I give you an approximation for how many gumballs there are in something, it has no consequence on the amount of gumballs that are in there. By approximation, there's 100. No, there's 4,000. Well, it's an approximation. It created a singularity. Bent geodesics! Are you nuts? This is garbage, woman.
That's why physicists think
No. Physicists would be performing physics. That's the study of the physical and natural world. That's natural science. Now, physicists would be varying and manipulating things in actual reality, independent variables. And they have to fit a certain criteria. That is to say, first and foremost, they're real! And capable of being varied and manipulated. And your independent variable in a hypothesis. That's what physicists... Oh, my bad. That's not what really you're talking about now, is it? You're talking about pseudoscience pretender clowns who make up stories. Like Cox. And Lemaitre.
the Big Bang singularity just tells us that we need a better...
Doesn't tell us anything. It's not an entity, it's a reification. It's a story. Now it's got lungs and lips and it's telling us things from what, the beginning of time that we haven't been to? Did someone travel back in the DeLorean and speak to the singularity for it to tell us stuff? No, love. This is a long gaggle screw of convolution. Doesn't have any validity in physical reality whatsoever. Yet we're talking to singularities at the moment.
theory. We don't have that theory, so the smart thing to do would be to just leave it.
So, again, it seems that every 3 minutes she disclaims that she's got nothing. Do you think that it's somehow reasonable to go through constant gibberish nonsense and at the end disclaim that that means you've basically got nothing to go on? But, oh no, we've got a new theory coming along, so let's talk about that for ages and disclaim 3 minutes later that we've got nothing. I hope the audience, I'm going to look at the chat in a minute, is getting a good idea of why this is so infuriating for me.
Leave it at that. But of course that's no fun. So physicists have come up with a lot of speculations for what might have happened instead of a big...
Is that what physicists do? The purveyors of the study of the physical and natural world come up with speculations for what might have happened. No, you see, what they do is they have a speculation about what physically might cause something else to happen, and then they physically vary it to see if it does or not. They validate it through an experiment. That's what physicists do. But not in this bullshit world that we all inhabit. Nah, this sums up what she has hijacked and what all of her colleagues and cohorts have also hijacked and call science. A lot of speculations for what might have happened instead of a Big Bang singularity. Because the Big Bang singularity's got absolutely no validity whatsoever, so our quote-unquote physicists will come up with a lot of speculations. How useful's that? No, real science is validating cause and effect relationships through systematic experimentation based on validated hypothesis. Then you can form theories, not speculations, not just so stories, not regurgitation of the priesthood's rhetoric about the Big Bang.
Big Bang singularity. And there's very little data in the way of their speculations.
So garbage. Not even 3 minutes after the last one.
young galaxies that the Webb telescope sees.
Young? I bet, again, we seem to have an equivocation problem. Are we talking young in terms of the time that we describe our existence and travel through the known universe? Something we are all familiar with? The time that we look at when we look at a clock? Having quantified by an arbitrary construct how we describe that process? Excuse me. Or are we talking bent geodesics? Because we've got a major equivocation problem going on with this woman. Young telescopes? Yeah, young stars looked at through telescopes. What young? Bent geodesic young?
These were probably created a few 100 million years after the Big Bang.
Probably. Probably made. I mean, maybe it could be 1,500 million years. I mean, it's only a probably. It's just a guess. It's a just so story, and we haven't got any validity for it. And looking at this stuff doesn't really tell us much either. But 900 million years for sure. Absolutely, without question. Maybe we don't know, and I'll disclaim in 3 minutes' time that we've got no idea about what we're babbling about in this instance. But there it is on screen. She knows. She's happy to declare it and disclaim that she doesn't know later.
The cosmic microwave background was created approximately
Insert bullshit here.
300,000 years after
We don't know. We haven't got much to go on, but definitely 300,000
the
years
Big
later.
Bang. And we have no observations from earlier on.
Do you know how they measured?
One more time.
Do you know how they measured the cosmic microwave background?
It's going to be with an angle.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It was with respect to sea level.
So you're telling us that the CMB requires a flat Earth?
Yeah, if you want to measure the angle of incident, it's returned to the surface of Earth. Yeah, it needs a flat plane. Earth to be a flat plane.
Measurements of the CMB come from a flat plane. This is a flat Earth proof, Sabine. Were you unaware? I think we need to let her know. That's Nathan Oakley, 1980, sent me. Go and let Sabine Hosselenfelder know. It's at the 3-minute 26 mark. If you want to timestamp it for her, say measurements of the cosmic background radiation require a flat Earth to measure. At Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me. Let her know. Link to her chat's going by right now in our live chat. Hopefully we'd get a link to our video were she to make a response and challenge us. Oh no, au contraire, the microwave background radiation was not measured with respect to a flat Earth. How dare you? Here's my sphere Earth measurements. Yeah, and if she did offer up said sphere Earth measurements, we'd point out how they came from a flat plane too.
Physicists have used particle colliders to study what highly compressed matter does.
No. Men in white coats have spent billions on smashing stuff together like they've been doing for quite a significant amount of time. Particle colliders have existed long before CERN existed. Having a massive one doesn't make this any more sciencey. There is no cause and effect relationships being studied at CERN. This isn't science.
And we can use this data to extrapolate back to somewhat before the creation of the cosmic microwave background.
No, you can't. Otherwise, you wouldn't have disclaimed, 2.5 minutes earlier that you couldn't do exactly that. You can't rewind time. But that's what they're alluding to, isn't it, here? If you're Dumbo and you listen to this crap and you don't really read between the lines of what she's actually saying, you would infer now that this thing is giving you a means to travel back in time. So essentially, she's given the impression to her audience that CERN is a frickin' time machine.
To around the time when the Higgs field condensed, but this still doesn't get us anywhere near the Big Bang. This is why, in theoretical physics, you find...
In what now? Theoretical physics, aka bullshit. Shows up a load of maths on screen. This isn't physical, my love.
Many alternative ideas for the beginning of the universe.
I see. So the CERN giving us answers is just actually, affirming the just so stories that have come from the quasi-physicists. Yeah, we know. None of this is science.
Depending on how you change the equations, because...
You think that our understanding of the beginning of time is based on how you change equations? No. No, non-physical conceptual mathematics has no bearing whatsoever on physical reality ever. At best, it can attempt to describe it with language. That's maths. It's a language.
Because there's no data to tell those ideas apart.
New data to tell us about ideas of how things happened in the past prior to the data coming in. Do we get the data from the DeLorean?
And this brings me back to Brian Cox's supposed debunking of the Big Bang.
It was never proven. You can't debunk something that was never proven. It's just a way of popping it into the rhetoric and false dichotomy.
In this clip from the BBC, he's clearly talking about the currently most popular theory for what happened before the Big Bang.
Theories in science are validated by systematic experimentation based on hypothesis after observing natural phenomena and supposing the cause to go on to vary it and see if it causes it. If it does, you can form theory. But we've got the most popular theories. This isn't a race between men and their just so stories. But to the untrained ear, this sounds like justified science because it's a theory from the physicists. It all sounds very sciencey to the untrained ear, does it not? This is how they con you.
It's called eternal inflation. In eternal inflation, the creation...
It's a just so story made up idea that has absolutely no validity in physical reality.
Of our universe is not singular, so strictly speaking there isn't any bang. According to this theory, our universe is created by a quantum fluctuation in a field.
I've got to throw some quantum words in there. This won't have anything to do with actual scientifically validated quantum mechanics, but if you just so story's got some nice science words in there, then the general public will think that you've validated this with systematic experimentation to offer proof, because most of the general numpty public believe that you mean proof every single time you say a science word. That means it's proven.
Field called the inflaton. The inflaton creates this fluctuation, and that creates a bubble, which then rapidly inflates, hence the name. At some point,
hence the name, and backed by science in what form? Beyond the just so story made up by a man. Where's the validation for this?
The inflation stops and all the energy from the inflaton field is converted into matter.
So where do we see this field for us to validate its cause? That would be to say naturally observed phenomena is the first step into the scientific method. This is nonsense, made up just so stories. Now I'm sure you can build a multi-billion-dollar experiment after the fact to validate this just so story, right? I mean, we've got a bent geodesic time machine in the form of CERN, haven't we?
All the matter around us is created only at that point when the inflaton field dumps its energy.
The inflaton field is made up.
In the literature, this event is usually referred to as reheating. What happened with Brian Cox's...
What event? They haven't validated any of this crap. Go ahead, whoever that was in G+. Or was it just someone hot micing? Eli, I'm looking at you.
Explanation is that he made it sound as if the reheating is the Big Bang. I mean, listen to it yourself.
We will, Sabine, we will, right after these break.
As inflation ended, the ocean of energy was converted into matter. At the Big Bang.
Was it? Says who? Lemaitre?
So basically, he just used the word Big Bang for something completely different.
And Big Bang was invented by a man who just decided to come up with a just so story to explain something that was unexplainable. You know, trying to come up with an explanation for the second law of thermodynamics is really what this all boils down to. And you'll never do it. You'll never explain entropy.
It's somewhat of a disease among science communicators that are...
Science communicators, as opposed to people varying and manipulating that which they assume causes an effect they observed in nature and wanted to study to advance humanity.
I've complained about before because
Did you write a letter to the BBC moaning about Cox? Oh, this guy's outrageous. Challenging just so stories by utilising aspects of the just so story to say the just so story's wrong. How dare he? I'm sure it'll get on right to reply, my love.
Causes a lot of confusion, but let me not go there again. Maybe more importantly, even...
You could just stop making up just so stories to try and explain entropy. Maybe that would be more importantly.
Leaving aside that we don't know whether eternal inflation is even correct.
There's that disclaimer about 3 minutes after the last one. We just don't know. Right on cue.
It doesn't remove the Big Bang per se. It
Remove it. It hasn't been validated. How many times have I got to say it? Yeah, that's all this is for, though, isn't it? Saying that Cox's inclusion of Big Bang, which essentially doesn't challenge it in any way, he's utilising aspects of it, but this doesn't debunk it. So now we're in a position where Brian Cox's use of the Big Bang explanation within his own rhetoric, which basically will probably be exactly the same, but claimed to be challenging the Big Bang, doesn't challenge the Big Bang. Therefore, what, affirming it as being validated in the mind's eye of numpties? It's never been proven! This is just a false dichotomy setup. Pathetic.
just removes the Big Bang in our universe.
Oh, really? We never had one in our universe, love. We never rewound the arrow of time to find out that it was true. It wasn't true. It was made up by a man.
You see, in eternal inflation, there are infinitely
We don't see that. Now you're talking in language that's past tense like we've done this.
many of those quantum fluctuations, and each gives rise to a new universe.
No, it doesn't. You're just making this stuff up.
This entire multiverse of eternal inflation, however,
We don't have any multiverses. This is all garbage. Again, derived from Einsteinian fourth-dimensional pseudo-Riemannian space-time bending. An evolution of that is extra dimensions. We don't have any. This is all garbage. Why am I even worried? I'm sure in 3 minutes she'll tell you that she doesn't have any proof or evidence of this. Why am I even bothering to interject? She'll tell you herself in 2 minutes.
must also have had a beginning at finite time. And then you can ask, well, what happened before that? So eternal
Finite bent geodesics in space-time from Einsteinian hijacking of three-dimensional reality into fourth-dimensional pseudoscience, or time like the existence that we experience in our known universe, as in the elapse of time as we would know it looking at a clock, or is it a bent geodesic? Again, we've got this problem with equivocation here, haven't we?
inflation just moves the problem elsewhere. And of course, there are other ideas for the beginning of our universe besides eternal inflation.
Other ideas, you say? So, man, there's loads of ideas. Maybe none of them are real.
For example, there's the idea of a big bounce, in which there was an earlier phase of the universe which
There's the big plop. There's the big poo. There's all sorts of them.
contracted. Matter became very dense, but not infinitely so, and now it's expanding
Because man said so in Just So Story.
again. If those bounces repeat, it's called a cyclic universe.
What bounces? How would they be repeating? When did we see the first one? Where is the observed phenomena? Answer to all, we don't have one. There isn't any, we haven't seen it.
You can also just push the Big Bang all the way back to minus infinity and say that for half of infinity very little happened and then the universe suddenly started expanding.
So, infinitely regress time as we know we elapse through our known existence, or time as in a bent geodesic in space, time, Einsteinian fourth dimensional pseudo-reality. Again, it's constant equivocation.
It's not a very popular idea, probably because the entire
Because it's total nonsense and made up like all the other ones, including Lemaitre's Big Bang.
point is that it's infinitely lame. Or there's the Hartle-Hawking no-boundary proposal that says before the Big Bang, there was no space-time, there was just a four-dimensional
There is no space-time now. So before the Big Bang, there was no Einsteinian, invented 109 years ago, superseding Newtonian mass-attracting mass gravity bent space-time. Maybe before the Big Bang, there was no existence of invented by Einstein space-time. Yeah, I could say that 109 years ago, couldn't I? But what, before the existence of the Big Bang that hasn't been validated, there was no fourth dimensional bent space-time? Wow, profound. Yeah, it isn't real either.
dimensional space, and then one direction of that space turned to time.
Oh, back to the actual bent geodesic in space-time time now, as opposed to what we look at on a clock when we experience our journey through the known existence that we experience. I see. So we're back to bent geodesics in space-time, but they're not existing prior to the Big Bang that Lemaitre invented with the Just So story. Wow, how profound. Also complete nonsense, total and utter garbage made up by men.
These ideas are all more or less
More or less just ideas.
compatible with observations because you can all
Compatible with, as opposed to explanations for or validation or proof for anything. Just merely correlated with some of the stuff we look at through our telescopes. Yeah, that's exactly what they are. Mere correlations that happen to be compatible with observations.
Always make sure that the deviations from Einstein's equations are unmeasurably small.
His equations are, Jack, in terms of their meaning, because they are a pseudo-geometry that you, as a clown, reify into your existence when equivocating between his bent geodesics and what we call time.
This doesn't mean these ideas are wrong, it's that we can't
It's just that we can't validate it, right?
tell whether they're right or wrong.
I knew it. I called it every time. So we just don't know. So we can just discount every single word you just said as being made up nonsense, as I disclaimed it as you were saying it, because you've now validated that which I critiqued. You just can't tell if it's right or wrong. Yeah, so it definitely isn't right and definitely isn't proven. All of it. None of it's proven. None of it's right. Yeah? But it might not be right. It might not be wrong. Well, you better get on with proving that crap then, haven't you? Because otherwise I'm not going to accept it as being anything that's worthy of my time.
So what happened before the Big Bang?
You don't know, and there was no Big Bang, but suddenly we're deciding what happened before it because you've already decided it's true, because a man called Lemaitre made it up. Yeah, we're not going to question what happened before C.S. Lewis came up with Narnia. What was pre-Narnia?
Physicists have a lot of speculations, but the short
Yeah, I bet you do, yeah.
answer is that we don't know. And since
No, you don't, do you? Oh, this gets better and better.
there's so little information left over from whatever happened,
Billions spent on CERN, so little information.
we might never know. So
Everybody who invested in CERN, we might never know. We spent absolute shit ton on it, but we might never know. We just accept that. Meanwhile, there's a giant kaleidoscope that we're going to build. It's going to cost $17 billion. Who's in? We might explain the beginnings of the universe with it. I mean, we might not know at the end of it, but we might not know that we might not know. So we might know. You never know.
it's not like Brian Cox said something wrong. It's just that
It's
communication
just that none of you have validated any of this garbage.
is difficult, which is why
Yeah, talking about stuff you've made up's hard when you can't validate it whatsoever. Meanwhile, what science does is benefit humanity. You know, the advancement in things like quantum mechanics has brought us computing. Semiconductors have advanced humanity. And why do we have them? Well, because we went through the scientific method to validate cause and effect relationships when studying light. Isn't that wonderful? How science has advanced humanity to give us the technology that's enabled you to spew this garbage to audiences and propagandize them. How wonderful science is to give you the facility to do this.
I always try to learn a few words in the local language when I'm traveling. As I've mentioned before, we're planning to go to Paris, and I've been learning some French with Babbel, who've been sponsoring this video. I've made some progress. Je parle un petit peu français. For example, so go and
Yeah, that's it. Okay, any comments? As I did most of the commentary, if not all of it.
Well, navigate to Paris. I wonder how she's going to get there.
She'll need a flat plane for that. And if she gets lost, she might use the age-old celestial navigation method of measuring angles off a flat Earth. Or maybe she'll use GPS and get there using the Mercator projection of a globe that was made using angle measurements taken off a flat plane to Polaris to give you a grid system to convert onto a ball to roll out into a cylinder that you're going to make into a flat map that's called the Mercator projection used in GPS. GPS has an origin in flat Earth measurements of the stars. That's probably how she'd get there.
Oh, yeah, that is how she would get there.
Her trip to France proves Earth's flat. Very good. Please let Sabine Hosselenfeld know at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me. I will stick another link in the chat right now while we're discussing it.
Yeah, I just want to give a quick shout out to Elvis for finding and sharing the Tyson video.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, we've got more to do. So this is
That guy just
trimmed out by Vlad, and it is Bob the science guy and Planet Peterson discussing measuring curvature in his backyard.
Get your popcorn, fellas. Get your popcorn.
Decided I really wasn't going to do any debunking. So what you will see over here is me dissecting the arguments, and you will also see me doing the science that allows you to actually debunk these things. And, you know, like I do it
doing science to debunk these things. So establishing cause and effect relationships based on systematic experimentation after observing natural phenomena and asking, I wonder why that happened. You think you're going to be doing that, do you, Bob? I doubt it.
myself. I've personally measured the curvature of the earth in my backyard.
Measure like maths. So if you're measuring things, that's maths, not science. Immediately you're in a category error. We'll see how you claim to have measured curvature.
I have a half-mile long lake. I've measured the rotation of the earth.
All right, where did you measure it? What you're just claiming it as a baseless assertion?
Well, he has
I'm going to be doing
a long lake that's level. So he's not starting off real well. If it's a lake, then it's a level lake.
doing Earth-Moon, Earth bounces to measure the distance to the moon.
All right, Earth-Moon bounces requires return angles, doesn't it?
Absolutely, it does. You know, if he tries to depict it north side on, he'll have to use a flat Earth to describe it.
Your moon bounce will prove a flat Earth, Bob. You'll need a return angle off a flat plane.
Using ham radio tonight, I tracked the ISS and verified its position and speed. You know, these are things that I can do. I'm capable of doing here. And I decided.
Okay, moving on.
You've been the target of flat earthers. I didn't even realize this, but there are a couple.
Has he? Has Bob been targeted by flat earthers? How so?
Couple of flat earthers that have been making videos about me on YouTube for months, and I had no idea until only a couple of weeks ago.
Why are you smiling about it?
Oh, yeah, all the time. Not only have they made videos, they've threatened to have me shot.
Oh, yeah.
Outrageous.
They've tried to dox me.
Yeah, happens when you're a YouTube personality, Bob. That's just the way it goes.
Published my office and home address.
Yeah, people have done that to me too.
Wow.
You know, things like that. This is the type of community you're dealing with. These are the.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Bob. Yeah, scummy community. The trolls are trolls. I mean, that's not really the community, though. That's a stereotyping fallacy. In the same way you've had this, I've had this. I wouldn't put it on you, though, Bob. You know, maybe you'll stereotype all flat earthers with this now. We'll see.
The type of people.
Yeah.
So when you destroy them, they strike out like petulant children.
Oh, so by the same standard, me getting doxxed means that you on the globe side are striking out like petulant children? That's just a stereotyping fallacy, Bob. Yeah? Because you've been doxxed by bad people doesn't mean that all of the category you're going to bundle them in with are bad. Likewise, I wouldn't put it on you that you've doxed me because I have been doxed. Many times, Bob. Yeah? But that's not you. That's not you being a globe believer. Yeah? Stereotyping fallacy.
Yeah, they're not
and
quite right.
It's kind of fun.
Anyone want to add something to that?
He doesn't think the earth is flat. And I've listened to very little of him because I don't have the patience and I don't care. But from what I've heard, he really sounds like somebody that doesn't believe what he's saying.
Oh, of course he doesn't. Do you know Ranty Flat Earth?
No.
Ranty was a really big flat earther.
Again, sorry.
Did they just mention you by name at the beginning of it?
Yes. Yes.
I didn't catch that. Was that me they were talking about? Oh, I didn't catch that.
Yes. Yep.
We'll listen again at the end.
Made a lot of videos and such that had a come to Jesus moment and realized that this was all crap. He was in the inner circle there. And, you know, he came on out and said, these guys, you know, he's talked about it. These guys know full well the earth isn't flat. It's Nathan Oakley is a trained actor. You know that, right?
That's true. That is true.
That was what his degree in was theater.
I
He's a
don't know
voice
very
actor
much
in the
about him,
UK.
but yeah.
Yeah, he's a voice actor in the UK.
I was never a voice actor in the UK. I trained in performing arts.
And, he's trained in theater.
Oh, man.
Performing arts.
He's got a...
But,
I can't stand listening to him. The fact that he's a voice actor, that's...
And why do you listen? I can't stand listening to him. Yeah, don't listen. Why listen then?
That's funny.
Yet you're smiling about it. Maybe you're lying. Who knows? Moving on. Oh, yeah, I said I'd play the beginning of that, didn't I?
Yeah.
He doesn't think the Earth is flat. And I kind of... I've listened to very...
Yeah, your clip just missed it off, but I'll take your word for it.
The fourth daddy's kind of come up with the ideas like this big thing about, quantum eraser and his, we have to use my scientific method or else it's pseudoscience.
But his scientific method. So when we discussed in the pre-show it dating back to Francis Bacon, that's QE's scientific method, is it? Just pure coincidence that we're discussing that in the pre-show. I love it. I'm sure he'd take the stolen valor that he hasn't requested. But it definitely isn't quantum eraser's scientific method. It's just the scientific method.
He's the one that developed that.
Wow. Oh, QE, you learn something new every day. When we were discussing Francis Bacon, there was me thinking I heard Bacon. It must have been quantum eraser. Yeah, that's just my hearing.
Nathan Oakley is another one. Austin Witt. The fourth daddy's kind of come up with the ideas like this.
Fourth daddies? I'm a fluffer and I'm a daddy, but fair enough.
Their argument is that because we see in hyperbolic geometry,
which we...
Anybody here, when was the last time anybody used the words hyperbolic geometry? Raise your hand.
Never.
So, what should we call Bob a liar? Outright calling you a liar. You were literally talking about me in the last clip, so I can only assume by your stereotype that you've definitely bundled me in with. You're now claiming that I say this. You're a liar, Bob. There is no two ways about it. I don't think the words have crossed my lips, other than repeating them for you saying that we, by stereotyping fallacy, use this as our argument.
Don't.
Which we don't.
Right.
But because our eyeballs are round and the back of our eyes have hyperbolic geometry on the retina, we're somehow fooling ourselves into having an illusion, or we're imagining a globe on a flat Earth. And as a result of that,
No, you're taking measurements of a flat Earth. Like radial values, minimum elevation angle to Polaris, Bob. You aware of it? For your latitude system, it gives you the equator. That gives you your R value, so that it can cross-engineer back into the flat Earth measurements that you'll take to derive it and use it. So it has to work in terms of a back engineering. That's why the circular, flat plane, radial value to the equatorial minimum on the equatorial plane is what was converted into a globe. But that's a flat Earth measurement, my friend.
every different way that we measure the surface of the Earth.
It's all flat. In every single instance.
Even if we measure it with the odometer, the distance between 2 points.
Like an odometer. Okay.
And apply the Haversine formula. Every measurement comes out to the same radius.
Why would you have to apply a formula to a measurement to get curvature, Bob?
Good question. Let me paraphrase that for you, John. Are you asking why, if you're measuring something spherically, i.e. a basketball, would you have to apply a conversion to spherical if you're measuring it as a sphere? There'd be no point making a spherical conversion if you're measuring it spherically. Is that what you're asking?
Yes. Yeah. Why are you applying the Haversine formula if you're measuring it as a sphere already?
Can I answer?
Because the Haversine is...
Because he's not measuring it as a sphere. Earth's measured flat.
But they're saying somehow because our eyes are different, even if we're not using our eyes, that way, therefore it's an illusion. It's one of these arguments, There are 5
that none of us made. I call your curve calculations in an orthographic view perspective hijacking. No hyperbolic geometry described, perspective hijacking described. Things getting smaller into the distance, that's perspective. It's really simple. Maybe if you make it sound more complicated and claim an argument we haven't actually used with words we've never said, after describing me personally in stereotyping fallacies, you'll what, not get away with being called a liar? No, you are. You're just a liar, Bob.
You run into somebody like me. Well, weight changes by latitude is one. Fiber
does it? All those gold merchants are moving their gold, are they? So they can get more for it? No, Bob.
Latitude.
No. Go on, John.
Where are you going to measure latitude, Bob, to get to assert that the downward vector on a flat plane changes, Bob?
Your latitude description was a measurement of a flat plane, Bob. Part of your argument includes measurements of a flat Earth. Obviously, he was unaware of that when he said latitude.
optic laser ring and laser ring gyros is another.
Go ahead, whoever that was.
I was just saying, and weight. Weight is a measurement with respect to a flat plane. And this idea of the ring laser gyro, are they going to level that monkey before they use it? Or are they
Yes,
just gonna...
they will, yes.
Oh, yeah, that'll need a flat plane too, Bob. We're using a flat plane.
Okay. There's a lot of things that you can do. The characteristics of shadows in sunrise and sunset.
Sunrise and sunset with respect to a physical geometric sphere edge horizon blocking your view of said sun. No, we debunked that in 2020, Bob. Modus Tollens, Black Swan. You don't have a sphere
No,
edge
he's talking
horizon
about
to
the
block the sun
elevation
anymore.
angle.
Sorry, go ahead, John.
He's taking the elevation angles from the sticks and shadows to claim that proves it's a sphere when you're using that on a flat plane to get that measurement.
Oh, you'll need a flat Earth for those sticks and shadows, Bob. Flat Earth required. Depicted on screen now, right? Elevation angles, sticks and shadows. Flat plane required, Bob. Can you stop using a flat Earth to make your examples, please, Bob? It's getting irritating and tiresome. You're constantly utilising a flat Earth to make your claims of a globe.
The fact that a mechanical gyro compass works depends on the Earth rotating.
Right. Compass, as in pointing in directions on a plane. They're not ball directions, Bob. North isn't ball related, Bob. It works on flat maps, Bob. You'll need a flat plane for this, Bob.
It does not work if the Earth does not rotate, and they do work, therefore.
Sorry, what do you mean it does not work if the Earth rotates when you're talking about directions on a compass? It has absolutely no bearing on your presupposed movement of the stars, inferring that Earth's moving beneath our feet. You can debunk that as well. Coriolis deflection would be describing how Earth turns underneath a second reference frame. I'll refer you to Simon Dan. You and your reference frames have been ruined, Bob. Earth's not turning.
Fourth, the Earth is rotating.
No, your reference frames have been ruined, Bob. See Simon Dan.
You run into somebody like me. Well, weight changes by latitude is one.
I should have done a call to action ages ago. Please share the show. 100 people watching. Woohoo! Please smash that share button. It's like 2 clicks to share the show. Really, really easy. Someone said that I should show people how to do that. I'm not going to do it right now. Literally right under the video, there's a button that says share. As soon as you click it, it brings up Facebook, Twitter, Bebo, MySpace. Click whichever one you use. And then it automatically brings up a link with a share link that shows the video. And you don't have to do anything. You just press share on your Facebook feed or whatever you're using. It's like 2 clicks. Share and then Facebook. And then it's done.
One.
What interestingly enough, this claim.
Go on.
Oh, I was just saying this claim about weight changing with latitude. Weight is a linear downward vector in air in the vertical with respect to a horizontal plane, not a curve, Bob. And latitude is an angle measurement from the surface of Earth to a celestial body. Means the Earth's flat, Bob.
It's very annoying. Stop using flat Earth proofs, Bob.
laser ring and laser ring gyros is another. Okay, there's a lot of things that you can do. The characteristics of shadows in sunrise and sunset. The fact that a mechanical gyro compass works depends on the Earth rotating.
Is there any more of these? Yeah, there's a few.
You know, how many people can you go to and say, you know, what's the difference between Euclidean and hyperbolic geometry? How many people can actually answer that question and then explain that it has to do with this, you know, it's the surface that the triangle's on. It's not the triangle.
Yeah.
So, flat
That's
Earth then?
wrong.
Go ahead, John. You take the glory.
No, the hyperbolic geometry is done from the center of the sphere, and Euclidean geometry is done from the surface of a plane. They're both being done from a planar surface. You use straight lines to define curves. He's an idiot. Obviously, doesn't understand mathematics or geometry.
And, you know, when you answer it, it kind of flabbergasts them a little bit, and they try and find something else to get you on.
Yeah, they change.
I didn't think John was particularly flabbergasted. Did you feel flabbergasted, John?
I felt insulted for all of mathematics and geometry that this guy's claiming he knows what he's talking about.
Change the
nervous
subject,
laughter. Then the nervous laughter starts, and they start talking over you some more and interrupting you, and then they throw you off the show.
Or
That's the way it
the
typically
condescending tone, or
You know,
with each other. The Coriolis. This is the great thing about science and scientific theories is they unify an enormous range of.
But did you start off by talking about Coriolis? I mean, we've already referred him back to Simon Dan. I don't mind mentioning him twice in one show, Dan. Hey, you're popular today. You and your reference frames have been ruined, right? Let's see if that's useful again in a moment. But this isn't science. Coriolis effect is just a description of an effect we can observe. Most of the time, we're inducing the effect, although you can just about squeeze it into having a natural phenomena. But the descriptions of Coriolis effect aren't science, Planet Peterson.
Of observations. So just
the science of observations, fallacy of division, taking part of the truth and applying it to the whole. No, observation is the first step if you're observing a phenomena. That doesn't make observations science.
If we just go with that the Earth is a sphere, that does explain why the night sky rotates clockwise and counterclockwise depending on where you are.
Textbook affirming the consequent formal logical fallacy. Go ahead, John.
No, he just claimed that the night sky rotated, which is if you're describing rotation, that's with respect to a flat plane. That's not their claim. Their claim is the Earth is rotating, the stars are fixed. So he can't make that claim without a flat plane. So he's just wrong.
Does explain why the night sky rotates clockwise and counterclockwise depending on where you are.
Yeah, he needs a flat plane for that as well.
Explains the geometry of where the sun is depending on your latitude and where
latitude. You're going to need a flat Earth for that. It's a flat Earth measurement.
Where the North Star is,
and in fact, this thing works,
and how a sextant works
on a flat plane only,
and so many other things. Now, what they do is, you know,
how many more there are of these? We'll rattle our way through all of them as they've all been trimmed out.
With each other. The Coriolis, this is the great thing about science and scientific theories, is they unify an enormous
for
range
example, with the moon landings,
of observations.
We have a lot of documentation, a lot of warrant to believe the moon landings occurred.
You believe it as much as you like. It took place via a journey through a second law of thermodynamics violation sky vacuum, though, didn't it?
The burden of proof that you have
is to prove that it took place in a second law of thermodynamics violation sky vacuum. It didn't. That would violate natural law. If the sky was a vacuum and rockets were capable of traversing the gas pressure we're all breathing into an area 10 to the minus 17 torr vacuum, then so would all the gas we're breathing. We'd all be dead.
Is that you have to show me that Neil Armstrong was in Hoboken, New Jersey on July 20th, 1969.
No, I can just debunk the area he's claimed to have gone to. In the same way, if someone says they've traversed a wardrobe to go to Narnia, all I need do is debunk the notion of travelling through wardrobes to a place that doesn't exist. Likewise, I can debunk the area that Neil is claimed to have travelled through, which is a sky vacuum by your estimation in a heliocentric world. Well, let me give you a rumpus quote. The second law of thermodynamics does not apply to the Earth. In your world where natural law doesn't apply to sky vacuums and ball Earths. Meanwhile, natural law definitely applies to the world we inhabit.
He was not where they said he was. You have to show me where he actually was.
No, I don't. Do you remember yesterday when I gave the example of the guy who has a tete-a-tete with his wife, and when she asks where he was, he says, I've been at the gym, 6 p.m. till midnight. And then the police come along and say, your husband has been in this industrial complex. He left his work at 4 p.m. and we've got him tracked by ANPR cameras to the industrial complex. He then left the industrial complex at 11 p.m. and came back home. We got him again tracked on ANPR cameras. We've got his face on security with facial recognition. Here it is. Here's the pictures. And they turn around and say, well, you need to show me why he was in this place and when he was doing it and why he wasn't in the gym. You go, no, I don't need to prove why he wasn't in the gym. Yeah, you do. Why wasn't he in the gym? No, I don't have to do that. I just have to show you that he wasn't where he says he was. It's like, no, in this instance, I don't need to do any of it. I just need to show that the sky is not a vacuum. Therefore, where he actually was when he was claimed to be in a place that isn't real is irrelevant. Does it matter where he actually was? He wasn't in a place that isn't real. He wasn't in a sky vacuum, in spite of where he said he was. Proving where he wasn't isn't my duty of care when it comes to telling people that the sky is not a vacuum.
Could you imagine this guy on a criminal jury? If he was on a criminal jury, he would be like, okay, well, the defense has proven that the prosecution's story is false, but they've not proven who did it, so this guy's guilty. That's Bob's reasoning.
Yeah, it's sad. Really sad. Hey, Adam.
That one more orbit flight that went pole to pole and circumnavigate.
Orbits need a flat Earth, Bob. Talking about derivations of the angle differences off a flat plane. That's how your orbital mechanics have been derived, my friend. You're going to need a flat plane for those orbits.
Navigated the world. You have to
navigated what, off a flat plane, like all the new worlds we discovered with that sextant tool that you held up earlier. Those require Earth to be flat to get elevation angle measurements and derive areas of equal elevation. Big, massive circles. Flat in all directions, Bob. Definitely can't work on a sphere.
Show me that's in a hangar in Palm Beach, Florida, and not over the South Pole, in order for your claim to have any validation.
No, my claim, there isn't a claim. You mean when you reverse the burden of proof and suggest that when you're telling the world that Neil Armstrong went to the moon because you can't show where he wasn't.
Because there's too much evidence to the contrary.
No, there isn't any evidence that he went to a sky vacuum. In fact, it stands directly in violation of a natural law, Bob. There is no evidence. Now, I could spend forever looking at the evidence that they say is claimed to prove he went to some soundstage somewhere with a backdrop. But having worked in performing arts, I'm fairly familiar with backdrops, having paid a few myself. And, the moon landing footage has a backdrop in it. You know what I mean? It's not him on the moon. It's him on a stage. I'd know, wouldn't I, Bob? I've trained in it. That's a backdrop. Yeah? That's what backdrops look like. Like in The Wizard of Oz. Yeah? To the untrained eye, it looks like the field extends forever. But in reality, it's just a painted backdrop. Yeah? Like in the moon landing. Yeah, I'd know. I've been trained, Bob. Thanks for the commendation in that regard.
Yeah.
You have to show me something that's overwhelmingly conclusive that...
What, a second law of thermodynamics? Raise your hands if you think that a law of nature is pretty conclusive. Yes, Nathan. Yes, Nathan. Yeah, we all agree.
He's also going to need a flat plane for that. He's going to need a flat plane for his 14.7 psi at sea level for the claim of a vacuum of space.
Yep.
It was fake.
Well, aren't you forgetting that they can just lean back on an argument from ignorance and just say, you can't go to space because the temperature in space is higher than the melting point of metal.
Sorry, who made this argument?
Nobody said
Nobody?
that. Nobody makes that argument. That's stupid. They don't even make the same arguments that we point out. It's embarrassing.
Is that not, to anybody else who's ever watched any of the shows ever, a glaring straw man he's just built up? Because it's nice and easy to knock down, right, Peterson? How pathetic. I mean, if you actually parroted off our argument, let's see how you get on. Maybe you will in a second. We'll see.
That's an extremely stupid argument. The Van Allen belt radiation is too dangerous. You can't have an atmosphere next to a vacuum. All very stupid and disprovable claims.
One of my favorite ones.
Is it really, Bob? The second law of thermodynamics is one of your favourite ones? What's your response to it?
Which one is?
The violation of the second law of thermodynamics. Can't have a vacuum next to an atmosphere.
Yeah.
Correct. What's your response to it?
Well,
without a container.
Like I said, they don't even believe that.
So your rebuttal is we don't believe in a law of nature? Is that your rebuttal? Oh my God. I'm pretty sure that's not a rebuttal, my friend. Yeah, we don't need to believe in a description of that which occurs always. Entropy is real. It's not a belief. And your response to our argument that, yeah, your atmosphere can't exist next to a vacuum, further to that, your atmosphere is an oxymoron. Air doesn't take the shape of a sphere. It fills its containment. But moronically, as you phrased it, you think that our argument is overcome by telling your audience we don't even believe in the second law of thermodynamics, a law of nature? Wonderful rebuttal there, Peterson. Wonderful, wonderful. I wonder what Bob's got.
Because the same reason you supposedly can't have a vacuum next to an atmosphere would be the same reason that you can't have an atmosphere that has partial or that has pressure gradients. When you open a can...
So you're affirming what we've said. Yeah, saying that you can't have gas pressure next to a vacuum is the same as saying you can't have a gas pressure gradient next to a vacuum as well. That's right. You've affirmed our point there.
And if you can have the atmosphere at 0.01% the pressure or density at sea level, which they don't even deny, then why can't it be basically zero at some point?
Because it's a second law of thermodynamics violation, you absolute clown.
Zero sea level. What's that?
Yeah. George got it. Go ahead.
Spheres, they don't have that.
It's going to need a flat Earth for that, sea level. Didn't no one else get... John, you thought he'd caught something he hadn't. Go ahead, John.
But no, he was right. When he said at sea level, that Planet Peterson, he needs a flat Earth for sea level, not sea curve, sea level.
And
well,
they have no answer for that.
I just asked them at what altitude does the pressure gradient go to zero?
It doesn't. That's the second law of thermodynamics violation, Dumbo. Is there any more of these?
If you ever want to take a moment, listen to Nathan Oakley and have him talk about Walter Bisslin's affirming the consequence globe fallacy, Earth curve calculator, using imaginary refraction in space that can't exist.
Yeah.
No, not imaginary refraction, terrestrial refraction. 7/6 of a radius value measured off a flat plane.
And he throws that out. It's a practice script that they have.
Right, do you want to just compare and contrast what Bob says to what I say? Let's just hear it again.
Using imaginary refraction in space that can't exist.
Yeah.
And he throws that out. It's a practice script.
What you mean, begging the question? Because it is. It assumes the outcome. It's got an R value in the calculation. Proof of nothing. That's because it's fallacious. It begs the question. Perspective hijacking, because it takes that which we see, reducing in angular size into the distance, and describes it with a feet and inches value in an orthographic view that does not change in distance. That's perspective hijacking. Earth curve calculator. Script, you say? No, every single word in that description of the begging the question proof of nothing perspective hijacking earth curve calculator has come from 10 years of experience taking it apart. It's not a script.
That they have.
Also,
And
the curve calculator utilizes eye level. Oh, sorry. That curve calculator utilizes eye level and surface level as horizontal planes parallel to each other. Not curving, Bob.
Walter Bislin's earth curve calculator requires a horizontal plane of reference and eye level. Both are level. One is surface level. Proving Earth's flat in Walter Bislin's calculation, he needs Earth to be measured flat. That's why he's got a surface level that's flat in it. Bob.
The purpose of that is to try and divert your attention to make you think about these other things. So what you do is you sit down and say, okay, we're going to talk about Walter Bislin's then. You take the very first thing that they say, ignore the rest of it, and only respond to the first thing they say.
So my spiel, it would be begging the question. Okay? So when you respond to me saying your earth curve calculator begs the question, what are you going to do? No, it doesn't. It's in the title, Earth Curve Calculator. It's automatically assuming Earth curve's real. So what are you going to do after you've just focused on that one absolute stone cold fact that your Earth Curve Calculator assumes we've got Earth Curve? Yeah, maybe if you moved on to the second statement of proof of nothing based on begging the question, that's fallacious reasoning. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that statement stands on its own as well. Maybe if you got to the perspective hijacking aspect of your Earth curve calculator in orthographic view, where feet and inches value don't change with any distance. Because a 10-foot wall in Earth curve maths is 10 foot and visible at 1,000,000 miles. Oh no, unless Earth curve gets in the way. It's not that stuff gets smaller. That doesn't exist in Earth curve maths. You've hijacked the effect and called it Earth curve, Bob. That's why I call it the perspective hijacking Earth curve calculator, because it is. It's not just spiel. It's not just a script, as you call it.
And that's one way to keep them on task. And
really, you think asking me about begging the question proof of nothing perspective hijacking Earth curve calculators by way of focusing on the first thing I say will keep me on task? Yeah, you did really well when you came here, Bob. I'm pretty sure you had your ass handed to you by me.
Prevent them from derailing the conversation.
Maybe I'll have to trim out a few of the times Bob was reduced to a stuttering, stammering moron on this show by me, just to remind him exactly what happened when he came here.
If you ever want...
he came here, by the way, Peterson. Yeah? Bob, unlike you, has a set. You are an abject coward. You wouldn't come here. Yeah? Maybe you'll do like that guy who I'm told about in my pre-show is making demands of my time like I should come to him. When I've got an open door for any of you cowards to stroll straight through and prove Earth is flat, just like Bob did.
I want to take a moment. Listen to Nathan.
Let's see if there's another one.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of flat earthers say something to the effect of pilots are trained on flat maps and maps are flat. Why do you think that is? I was like,
because Earth is flat, and if they weren't, you wouldn't get elevation angle measurements to work with areas of equal elevation. So they've got to be flat maps, because otherwise they won't work with navigation systems. Earth is flat. That's how it's referenced. Go ahead.
It wouldn't have cartography either with the cardinal systems. Yeah.
Yeah. Your whole grid is derived from a measurement of Polaris and the sun off a flat plane. That's what gives you your grid on all your maps. It is flat, Peterson. You're just ignorant.
Like, because paper is flat.
No. Because the measurements of Polaris to give you latitude, which you referenced earlier, but were too dumb to know how the measurement came from when you referenced it. Because if you were smart enough to know where that latitude you referred to came from, you'd know it was a measurement of Polaris off a flat plane with an elevation angle measurement. Like the tool that your numpty partner in crime here held up? A sextant? Yeah, it measures 2 straight lines, numpty. That's what gave you that grid. The latitude that you referenced, measured off a flat Earth for the maps.
So is the Earth? Like, that's your argument?
No. The minimum elevation angle measurement to Polaris derived your radial value, and the maps, and the grid. But you think our argument is because paper is flat? No, that would be you smiling about your own little special straw man that you've created there,
I
Peterson.
And then they tend to say stuff that's just a flat out lie.
What, like you telling us that we've made an argument that a map being flat because paper is flat is why Earth is flat? No, Peterson, that's known as projection. Straight after a total straw man lie that none of us have ever made, you say, these people just lie. Yeah, like you just did. Yeah? Find me a clip of anybody saying because paper is flat, therefore maps are flat, therefore Earth is flat. As opposed to maps are flat so they can work with elevation angle measurements with respect to the horizontal baseline. Or maps are flat because they have to work with areas of equal elevation, circles two-dimensional in nature, that are with respect to a plane that has no elevation changes on it. Those sorts of arguments. Oh, that 2P brain Peterson who can't undo any of those arguments. He hears paper is flat and then goes on about how people who he's responding to lie. Yeah, you do.
And without knowing, but it's extremely esoteric knowledge.
Many stutters after claiming people are liars there, Peterson. Need to stutter and stammer around the fact that you've just projected out your own lies onto us. Yeah, stuttering, stammering clown. No, you are the liar, projector. Nobody's claiming that because paper's flat, that the Earth is flat. That's utterly absurd, and never an argument that's crossed anybody's lips ever. It's garbage.
It's like, did you know that according to the 1986 NASA documents to show that the whatever the training module they had for the digital program is...
So you know the year? What, the ones we presented? I thought you didn't like the sound of my voice, Peterson, but yet you're getting all of this information from us about the NASA documents that describe Earth as a flat, non-rotating plane. That document
assumes a flat, non-rotating disc or whatever.
Plane. Yeah, that's because that's what NASA said in that document. Or whatever. No, it's just what NASA specifically say when talking about aviation. Because you wouldn't want to have your pilots heading towards a massive opening, a void opening up at 8 inches per mile squared if there wasn't one. Because they'd die. So given that in your world there's a massive void opening up ahead of everybody at 8 inches per mile squared, and NASA, when training their pilots, make it explicitly clear that there isn't one, it's a flat, non-rotating plane, is that whatever? Whatever! Right, it's just NASA. And what they say about our Earth being flat is going to be how they train their pilots.
Yeah, well, you see...
Yeah, I've heard a lot of flat earthers say something to the happening around that.
Well, when we can start getting resources out of space, asteroids, hydrogen,
soil, oil. I mean, all of these things will come from the sky eventually. I can just see myself looking up at these clouds now thinking, I wonder how many oil refineries will eventually be up in that sky.
3, water on the moon. You know, it may get a little bit more interesting, but right.
Is that someone from my panel?
Yeah, I was going to say it's the same bait that the Ethereans get with free energy. They limited resources in a place that doesn't exist, you know?
Yep.
Up there in the sky vacuum. We can get all these things. Well, it has to be real.
There's so many resources in the sky vacuum, or on that light in the sky we call the moon, or in the hollow earth that Admiral Byrd was talking about, or in the ether. I mean, who knows? Just garbage. You're a fantasist, Bob. It's pathetic. Yeah, those actors, those trained actors, as much as you mock me, they got one over on you with backdrops, and now you think there's resources on lights in the sky, my friend. You were duped by actors. That's what Neil is. He's more like me than the fantasy that you have of him being a god flying around in the sky. He isn't. Wasn't. He's a liar. Was.
Right now, it's kind of viewed as high seas. Anybody's in trouble, you do everything you can to rescue them.
Well, you'll be navigating with a flat Earth then.
No, you wave at each other as you go by.
Yeah.
You know, that sort of stuff. You know, we try and advise them of when we're doing things. They try and advise us when they're doing things. You know, it works for the most part.
Yeah.
You know, when we watched Apollo 11, there were Russian spy ships off of Florida. And basically they went out there and, you know, they were really worried that the Russians would interfere with the communications. And basically they went out there and said, look, here are the frequencies we're using. Don't screw with us. You know, and they didn't.
Yeah.
So.
So just, no, we're not going to mess with you in Narnia. What's that? Is the frequencies you're using to radio back through the wardrobe? Don't mess with us. They were travelling to a sky vacuum, Bob. It's nice that you can reminisce about how when you were a kid you were bullshitted to about this garbage of sky vacuums and trips to the moon, and you bought it wholeheartedly. But it was actors, Bob. Take it from a trained actor. They frauded you. They faked it. They put up backdrops on a stage and filmed it. That's what they did, Bob. Yeah? With trapeze. Something else I trained on. Yeah? High wire? Floating around on wires? That's what they're doing, Bob. Yeah? Take it from me.
Well, we're currently serving basically a proxy, or we're engaged in a proxy war with Russia.
No. The Russians and the Americans have got trained actors in harnesses on sets together. Yeah? Take it from a trained actor. They're on harnesses. Yeah? That's what they're doing. Behind green screens now. It used to be painted backdrops, like in the theatre days. For me too. Yeah? There wasn't any of this newfangled green screen technology. They had to literally paint the backdrop on canvas and drop it out like you can see in the moon landing footage, Bob. Just have a little look. You can see the little line where the backdrop ends. And it kind of looks like the moon's carrying on into the distance. But really, it's just a backdrop on a stage. You've been duped by people like me, Bob. Actors. Trained actors. You knew how to get the better of people who didn't know any better. You. You weren't trained on how to spot a backdrop because you've never made one. Have you, Bob? I have. So I saw it immediately in the moon landing footage. I mean, that's a backdrop right there. This is all fake. I'd know I'm a trained actor. I've painted backdrops.
While collaborating in space with...
No, on stage, on high wires when they claim to be on the ISS. They're on high wires, trapeze, in a little harness with thin wires. Yeah? Acting like they're in space. You know, like Superman? Have you never seen Superman? Yeah? It's pretend. Superman isn't really flying around a globe Earth. It's pretend. Yeah, these guys, the Russians, the Americans, it's all a charade, my friend. It's all a big joke. Yeah? But the joke's on you, not me.
With Russia every single day.
Yep.
That's pretty fascinating how two groups that are spending billions of dollars to
hoax the world.
I have a question. I don't know if you know the answer to this. I suspect you probably do, though. I know that the way we measure our distance to the sun is to, well,
take a derivation of a flat Earth radial value and then take Kepler's ideas of orbital motion and Huygens' ideas that the Venus trajectory has a scaling use because Venus has the same radial value as Earth had when deriving that measurement with the equatorial minimum by way of an elevation angle measurement to Polaris on a flat Earth. That is the history of your distance to the sun.
Well, the first way it was done was to, observe a transit of Venus from two different places on...
No, that's what Huygens did much, much later. You are ignorant of your own bloody rhetoric.
Earth. But I couldn't possibly explain to somebody how you actually do that. Do you know?
Because you don't understand the story or the rhetoric or Kepler. Because all of those came before Huygens. But you don't know how Huygens, observed the light traversing the sky, occulting the sun. That's all it is. It's the transit of Venus. It's a little tiny dot moving past the sun. How complicated can it be? You don't know how he did it? It doesn't matter how he looked at it and observed it. What matters is he assumed that light had the same radial value as Earth when measured as a flat plane. That's the actual crux of the important bit. The assumption that Venus has the same radial value, so he can apply that radial value for Venus, Earth's twin, to Kepler's orbital motions, which don't have any scale. You don't have anything to give you scale until you make an assumption, which is precisely what Huygens did. You just don't know your own rhetoric. You're way over your head with this stuff, Planet Peterson. You're so ignorant of your own stupid rhetoric, it's untrue. You got to ask Bob about it. Pathetic.
Know how that measurement is done?
Well, it was done.
I have a question. I don't know
done. Initially, it was done in terms of the distance to the moon by Aristarchus of Samos. And I've got 2 videos on my channel about all of the geometry that he developed 2,300 years ago that actually works. The only reason he came up with the wrong answer is his measurements weren't accurate enough.
Sorry. Am I hearing this right? The reason he came up with the wrong answers? What the hell? Let's see if Peterson catches that.
So we can determine the distance to the sun that way. The second
the wrong way? Is this processing? Are the cogs turning in Peterson's head or what?
way we determine the distance to the sun is that they assume that Venus...
Good.
He's not detailing what the measurements are. Have you noticed that? They won't even talk about the measurements anymore. They'll allude to them, but they won't try to describe them as angle measurements anymore, will they?
No, but he's not even describing what Huygens did, though. He's describing something completely ancillary to that. So at the end of this, the question is, basically, how did Huygens take his measurement? Would you not say that that's a succinct rendition of what Peterson actually asked? Is he getting an answer to that question? Like, at all? Not, is he diverting around the questions because it's awkward because it's angles off a flat plane? Yeah, I get your point. But he's not even answering that, is he?
No. It's like we ain't gun shy about measurement now.
Was the same size as the Earth and used the angular size because they knew the relative distance between Venus. Well, they knew that Venus, I think, is what, 0.72 or 0.78 astronomical units from the sun, and we're 1 astronomical unit from the sun.
So based on Kepler's astronomical units after you've derived the distance by getting an AU, that's the process, isn't it, Bob? It sounds like Bob doesn't actually know this process. He sounds like he's bullshitting around it.
So you can use that distance between Earth and Venus.
Or what distance? You've got to infer the distance through Kepler and his scale, and the way you can get an actual value is by inserting a presuppositional value for the scale that you're going to use with Venus.
To kind of get an idea based on angular size about how far the sun is.
Angular size won't give you distance. You need to either know the distance or know its actual size. That's what you need. And you don't have either, Bob, do you?
And it was actually pretty accurate.
No. It won't give you anything. There's no accuracy by way of just looking at the size of something by way of its angle. That doesn't give you anything. You either need to know its actual size to begin with or its actual distance. And you don't have either. Huygens assumed Venus had the same size as Earth. Do you not know this, Bob? Why is it I, the flat earther, have got to actually fill you in on your rhetoric? He made a, and I quote, ingenious assumption. That's how it's documented, Bob. Huygens' ingenious assumption that Venus had the same spherical R value as Earth. Why haven't you told Peterson that? Are you withholding this or are you just ignorant, Bob?
But that was based on a...
It just doesn't tell him.
Running out of ideas. What's your favorite argument to hear just because of how dumb it is and how easy it is to dismantle and watch them panic? For me, it's water always finds its level. That's my favorite.
Excuse me, I'm just having a drink. Come again? Sorry, this principle that's used in building things? You find that hilarious? Oh, I'll let the entire masturbate race of builders know. I'll contact the Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors immediately. Are you having me on?
Hey, let's go and call up all the celestial navigators and say, mean sea level is garbage. Don't use it anymore. Yeah, just throw that out.
Bubble sextants, useless. Forget your bubble sextants. Just Peterson objects to that. He finds it laughable. What's that? You use a spirit level at work? Spirit level. Water for you being used to find things level? No. Have you not heard Planet Peterson? He thinks that's laughable.
It looks flat to me.
Oh, interesting. I mean, it kind of does.
Yeah, it looks flat to me, therefore it is flat.
It's being used to measure the world. That's what water is used for. Water is used to find level. That's its primary use in building things. But what you think that you can dilute that back down to it looks level. Yeah, it does if you've got a spirit level. It's using the principles and properties of water to find a level. Or a bubble sextant. So what, but this is just laughable because according to you, that principle used in building is summarized as if it looks level, it is, therefore it isn't, because I'm just saying they say it looks level, but it isn't really. This is crap. These two are idiots.
Yeah, I don't know what fallacy that is. That's kind
It's
of
not a fallacy, it's a principle used in building things.
an argument from ignorance, I guess.
No, it's an argument about how we build things.
Did he just,
Say again?
did he just claim something that was axiomatic was an argument from ignorance?
It's the word I couldn't find. The axiomatic principle of water being level, finding and maintaining said level, as used in building, that axiomatic principle he is described as an argument from ignorance. That is correct. This is the level. This is what we have to deal with. Dunning-Kruger idiots.
Not exactly.
I don't play,
Running out of ideas. What's your favorite Oakley does in his unbearable tone of voice is he says you're affirming the consequent and stuff like that.
So what?
And yeah, well, it's like, okay, but that doesn't mean that it's not true. It means that
That's called the fallacy.
a fallacy.
No, it isn't. A fallacy is where a fallacy has been employed to make a claim that can actually be demonstrated after the use of fallacy to be true. For example, if I was to say that Bob's claim that his car is red because if we have blue clouds in the morning or a nice clear blue sky in the morning, then his car is red. And we do have a nice clear blue sky in the morning, therefore his car is red. Now I say, no, that's an affirming the consequent fallacy. And then because I claim there is no way you can ever demonstrate the colour of your car to me, therefore your argument is void and it is ultimately unprovable that you have a red car, he can then claim the fallacy because he can easily demonstrate by rolling his red car in front of me that that is still the case. And therefore, claiming that the argument is void solely based on fallacy because a fallacy has been employed when the argument can be demonstrated to be true by another means. If you void the argument anyway, in other words, I discount the fact that he's got a red car anyway, simply because he has used a fallacy to claim it, then that's the fallacy. And affirming the consequent fallacy is if P then Q, Q therefore P. And the fallacy comes in the form of Q, not necessarily following the P statement that you are begged the question with. For example, if Earth is a sphere, then we will observe antipodal star rotation in the north and south hemisphere. We do observe antipodal star rotation in the north and south hemisphere, therefore Earth is a sphere. That is an affirming the consequent formal logical fallacy. If P then Q, Q therefore P. The Q statement may be a statement that you can offer up some semblance of evidence for. In this instance, you look up at the stars and they all move in the same direction for everyone, always, just to get that clear. But you can say that somebody observing the stars moving in the same direction, always, without exception, is a proof that when I travel south, I am now antipodal when I turn around. Now that is an affirming the consequent formal logical fallacy, exampled by way of a globe description of a proof of star rotation, meaning that Earth is a turning body, with the fallacy and an unpacking of the form and function of the fallacy with the example. That's what I do when I demonstrate a fallacy. It is not the fallacy when I say that you have affirmed the consequent to say that we are antipodal when suggesting that Earth is a sphere. It is, in fact, an affirming the consequent fallacy, as opposed to these numpties claiming that they have then gone on to prove that we have antipodal positioning, therefore proven to be non-fallacious just in reasoning, but ultimately a true statement that they've proven after the fact when using fallacious reasoning to claim it in the first instance, ergo fallacy. This isn't that, you complete pair of clowns.
Fallacy, yeah. Yeah, like
Simply because, you know, I call it the even a blind squirrel gets a nut sometimes fallacy.
That's funny.
Because occasionally you can...
Because occasionally Bob just makes up fallacies that don't exist and gives them names. Even though you've described what I actually use when I pull apart your rhetoric, for example, antipodal star rotation. They all move in the same direction, by the way. Yeah, you stupid idiot. Yeah, when they turn the other way, it's because you've turned around. You stupid boy. It's what you are, a stupid boy talking to a stupid old man. Because you're both idiots.
Can use a fallacious argument and still come to the correct conclusion.
No, you can't. If you use a fallacious argument, the argument is void. Now, if you can demonstrate by another means that your claim is true, then fine, I'll accept it. But the argument by way of fallacious logic is void. These people are clowns. Bob wouldn't know logic if it slapped him in the face.
But you can actually, with the Eratosthenes experiment, you can make the
not an experiment. It requires a flat plane.
Prediction of the shadow on the sticks.
Yeah, that's a flat plane proof. You need two straight lines meeting at a vertex to call it an angle. One is along the ground. That's a flat Earth proof, Bob.
Using both the flat Earth and the spherical Earth.
Nope, you can't get an elevation angle measurement from a curved baseline. A curved line meeting a straight line is not an angle. It's not a vertex. Actually, I'll take that back. Sure, you can actually call a curved line meeting a straight one a vertex, but you definitely can't call it an angle. So it won't work on both flat Earth and globe. It can only work on a flat Earth.
Yeah, you just have to do multiple measurements.
Yeah, I calculated, when I did the horizontal across my lake, I said, on a flat Earth, this is what I'm going to see. On a spherical Earth, this is what I'm going to see.
What, an angle from a curve with relation to the ground? You won't get that, Bob. You can't take an elevation angle measurement with respect to a horizontal baseline, which is precisely what you're doing with that tool you held up earlier. You cannot do that with respect to a curved surface. It cannot be done. It has to be flat to measure an angle. Go ahead, whoever that was.
But hold on. His mate was laughing about flat earthers referring the water to be flat. Bob is using the water to be flat. No one is laughing.
No, they can contradict themselves repeatedly without realizing they're doing it.
This is my margin of error. I have to be better than that, or I'm going to consider it unproven either way. Guess which one it matched? The spherical Earth.
Oh.
What, your angle matched up with a curve, did it? Now, fundamentally unprovable, Bob. You can't get your angle, that's two straight lines, to match a curved surface.
That's where
we know
the celestial sphere models.
Yeah, celestial sphere model would be with respect to an equatorial plane. That's a flat Earth inside a globe. Still a flat Earth that the measurements are coming from, though. Flat lines along the baseline. And right on cue, here's the flat Earth measurement that he referred to with the form of Eratosthenes. This is off a flat plane. These lines, these angles, they're all with respect to a horizontal plane of reference. Flat Earth required, Bob.
No, so far ahead of time. Like, there was an annular solar eclipse back in October. We knew that was going to happen years ago, right? Mm-hmm. My challenge to them would be predict the next time Mars goes in retrograde, or predict any upcoming eclipse and show your work.
All of this has been plotted and planned off a flat plane for centuries. Your globe reification for retrograde? See, he doesn't understand that he's got a malformed question when he's asking people to describe how the motion of the stars throughout the ages has been tracked and can be predicted for literally thousands of years into the future if you wanted to. Yeah? We've got the almanac. We know where they'll be. We navigate with them, you numpty. But you're asking us to show our work. Go and buy a copy of the almanac, you stupid boy. Yeah, and what you'll realise is those positions are known well and truly. Yeah, they're motions and predictions. The only problem I have with your question is you said retrograde. Retrograde comes only within the definitions that you have hijacked with measurements off a flat plane for things like the transit of Venus with respect to an flat Earth measured equatorial value at its minimum for Polaris, measured off a flat plane, to give you the outside edge of your ball Earth that took that flat Earth measurement to make it. All of these inferences use the same exact flat plane when you're talking about the stars. But retrograde, that's purely heliocentric. But you're asking us to work within the confines of your heliocentric explanation for retrograde motion. And that also requires a flat plane. All of the angle differences that were measured and tracked to give us the predictions into the future of where the stars will be so we can navigate with them were done on a flat plane. Sod all to do with retrograde.
Yeah. I actually have a video I can recommend for him. It's NASA from 1986 going over the basics of orbital mechanics. They'll explain everything to you off a flat plane just so you can understand it.
Got it up on screen now. Here's the plane of the ecliptic, and here's an angle measurement to a star. As you will notice, the globe Earth is no longer the surface that you are standing on. In fact, it's more akin to a protractor that you'd be holding at the centre of Earth in hell if you were to believe that Earth was a sphere. But what you're actually measuring is a massive flat plane, flat in all directions with a line running along the flat ground. Now, don't get me wrong, they've had to infer that somehow there's a sphere Earth involved in this process. It isn't. It's merely representation of the protractor from a flat plane out to the celestial sphere. That's what the world actually functions like, and that's what gives you all of the longitude and latitude grid. They are measurements of Polaris with respect to a plane, then transposed down onto the sphere surface like you're standing on it. But you're not. It won't work that way. You will measure the angles with respect to a plane, and if you're going to describe it in terms of navigation, you'll be describing those angles inside a globe, because then the globe is just the protractor, which is the way this entire magic trick has worked from the off.
Because the only way you can't do that with a flat model, which is like a weird neo-Tychonian model, because there's no mathematical regularity with it. It's totally chaotic. The epicycles don't work for anything.
So now you're calling them epicycles. Was it Ptolemy that was originally describing them as epicycles? Make up your mind. The only reason we've got retrograde motion is because you couldn't explain epicycles. But again, the angle differences of these stars are measured with respect to a flat plane. This is problems. Epicycles and retrograde motion are problems with a heliocentric or geocentric world description of the stars' movements. It doesn't alter how they're going to move. Furthermore, your elliptical orbital motions have been instigated by the church to give you better predictive capabilities of things like retrograde motion. Again, all measurements taken from a flat plane.
Because of the fact that these things are going around the sun.
Well, they don't understand the basic.
They're not. Your orbital motions derive from measurements of a flat plane. To infer that you've got an R value to put the stars in motion around a heliocentric-based sun and an Earth moving around that requires you first measure a radial value off a flat plane by deriving it from an angle measurement to Polaris. You first need to measure the stars with respect to a flat Earth to give you your inference of radial value, to give you your inference of sphericity, to give you your inference of orbital motion. Orbital motion has its genesis in flat Earth measurements.
Meaning of words. They seem to think that geocentric just means observing the solar system from Earth. And I said, no, geocentric means everything.
Next.
He doesn't. He thinks
like we know
geocentric means.
Means Earth-centric.
Oh, so far ahead of time. Like, there was an annular solar eclipse back in October. We knew that was going to happen years ago, right? My challenge to them would be predict the next.
No, that's it. That's the last clip. All right. Any comments? Thank you very much for trimming all those out, by the way.
Yeah.
Mighty Mush.
My pleasure, bro.
I would like to point out.
Great job,
I would
reviewing.
like to point out.
Just let Mush take his credit. Go ahead, Mush.
Nah, no credit, bro. Credit to you, man. Great job reviewing, and yeah, the whole time about just strawmans. That's all they did.
Super easy when you've trimmed out all the clips from here. Just click on the next one and then react. It's really easy. Thank you.
Nice. Cheers, brother.
Go ahead, John.
Yeah, the predictive model that predictive model that he was claiming is a flat Earth predictive model. It's not a globe predictive model. So, yeah, I would like to see them do their predictions from a globe. Let's see that for once.
Well, with that, I'm going to say if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley premiering streams, then stay tuned as there will be an after show to follow. Excuse me. Unfortunately, though, this is where we bid the live audience farewell. Another massive thank you to today's Discord and G+ panels for making today's live show possible. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!
Shout out to Uncle Ben for hitting the super chat saying thank you just before the show started. Sorry I missed it in the show. Stay tuned if you're watching an after show.